Welcome to the Daily Word Verse by Verse. Grab your Bibles and follow along as we continue in our study through the Gospel of John. Keep in mind that I'm using the Holman Christian Standard Bible, so if you're using a different translation, the read is different, but the message is the same. We're going to pick up our study in the 18th chapter of John. Jesus has been arrested, and he's going through a kangaroo trial. The Pharisees are doing this, and this is amazing because I'm going to point out some things today about the religious mind, how they wrongly arrest him, they fabricate charges. Let's not forget that they paid Judas to betray him. So his first stop was to Annas, the father-in-law to Caiaphas. And so John tells us that they tried to question Jesus, and Jesus asked them, well, how come you're not questioning the people who are all around me? I have thousands of witnesses. And to that, a guard slaps him. Now, they send him now bound to Caiaphas, the high priest. Now, I want to set this up too because this is going to be a very interesting story here. Now, let me read, and then I'm going to come back and tell you kind of the setup. Verse 25, he says, now, Simon Peter was standing and warming himself, and they said to him, you aren't one of his disciples too, are you? He denied it and said, I am not. And one of the high priest's slaves, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, said, didn't I see you with him in the garden? And Peter denied it again, and immediately the rooster crowed. Now, the reason why I wanted to read, now I'm going to go back and I want to set this up. Remember, they sent him bound to Caiaphas. Now they're in the temple palace, so they bring him back out to the courtyard, and Jesus is sitting there as Peter is denying him. And on that third denial, Jesus turns and he looks Peter directly in the eye as he denied him. History or tradition tells us that Peter never forgave himself for that. All right, verse 28. Then they took Jesus from Caiaphas, the governor, to the governor's headquarters, and it was early morning. So he's been all night in these interrogations. Okay, then they did not enter the headquarters themselves, otherwise they would be defiled and unable to eat the Passover. Now, isn't that amazing? They are worrying about the purity of eating the Passover. They're worried about the sanctity of keeping the law after they have framed a good man, just fabricated charges, and now are actively seeking to get the death penalty. By the way, they would have already killed him, except the Roman law prevented them from carrying out the death penalty. That's why they had to go to Caiaphas. Verse 29, Pilate came out to them and said, what charge do you bring against this man? Very simple question. Notice how they answer. Verse 30. They answer him, if you're not a criminal, we wouldn't have handed him over to you. You don't get that presumption of innocent or honesty. 31, so Pilate told them, take him yourselves and judge him according to your law. It is not legal for us to put anyone to death, the Jews declared. They said this so that Jesus' words might be fulfilled, signifying what kind of death he was going to die. Verse 33, then Pilate went back into headquarters, summoned Jesus, and said to him, are you the king of the Jews? Now, this was sort of a loaded question here. If Jesus said yes, he could be convicted as a criminal, treasonist, one who's trying to bring insurrection against the Roman Empire. Verse 34, Jesus answered, are you asking this of your own, or have others told you about me? Verse 35, am I a Jew? I'm sorry. I'm not a Jew, am I? Pilate replied. Your own nation and chief priests handed you over to me. What have you done? Right? In other words, the fact that you're standing here must mean you've done something. And of course, not necessarily. Right? In other words, just because. In other words, and by the way, Pilate knows that the Pharisees are crooked. He knows that. Verse 36, my kingdom is not of this world. said Jesus. If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would fight so that I wouldn't be handed over to the Jews. As it is, my kingdom does not have its origins in here. Now, by this statement, Pilate now is sort of realizing, what am I even doing here, right? Verse 37. You are a king then? Pilate asked. You say that I'm a king, Jesus replied. I was born for this, and I have come into the world for this, to testify to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth, listen to my voice. What is truth? Pilate answered. Now we know Jesus prayed this and gave the answer. His word is truth. So, very interesting that Pilate, by the way, is raising this question. It's not that he was going to follow truth. In a sense, he knows the truth of what's going on with Jesus. He don't even know why that they're standing there, with this trial. He already knows that right now. He already knows that this is a sham of a trial. That's why if you think about it, he keeps trying to throw it back on them. You go judge him by the law. But now they're seeking the death penalty, right? We can't put someone to death. And he knows this. Oh, they're just trying to kill this man. So now he said, well, what have you done to the Jews that they want to kill you? So, now this is a very interesting question, though. What is truth, right? Jesus' word is truth. Now, by the way, a good definition of truth is reality. If you want to have a definition of truth, truth is reality. It says, after he had said this, he went out to the Jews again and told them, I find no grounds for charging him. Now, what an amazing statement to those who are seeking the death penalty. So why are we going further? You just said, notice he said, I don't even find grounds for why you charge the man in the first place. So why are we continuing this? Why is he going to continue in this sham of a trial? Verse 39, you have a custom that I release one prisoner to you at the Passover. So do you want me to release to you the king of the Jews? And they shouted back, not this man, but Barabbas. Now, Barabbas was a revolutionary. Now, this surprises Pilate because he knows Jesus is innocent. Barabbas was a zealot. And he brought insurrection. And doing the insurrection, he murdered someone. And that's why he was slated to be crucified. He probably murdered a Roman. And because that's what the zealots would do. The zealots fought to free Israel, but they were always foolish. They were the proverbial always bringing the knife to the gunfight. The Romans were mightier. They just never had the might, but yet they would still have these insurrections. So Barabbas, in one of these insurrections, I said, murdered someone, probably a Roman. And so now the Jews, the leaders, and what's going on, by the way, is that you get this huge crowd in front of Pilate. And so they're inciting the crowd to yell these things. And Pilate is probably like, what the heck is going on here? You want me to release a murderer for a good man? And then he's saying they're king, but a good man. So Pilate is sort of baffled. Right? He's in a tight spot here. All right, we'll pick it up with chapter 19 because the trial continues. In the next video, I'll see you then.